Ecclesiastes is wisdom under the sun. Under the sun. It's the opposite of Ephesians. Ephesians is wisdom over the sun. Now, this is wisdom of this world, without considering anybody being lost or saved. Just wisdom of this world. The other wisdom over the sun speaks of the highest wisdom, which speaks of the kingdom. Now, at the end of the book, he tells people they ought to be saved and they ought to do what God wants them to do. But as far as life goes, you can find a lot of things in here, just practical wisdom. Same writer that wrote the book of Proverbs. He brings out a lot of dilemmas, like working all your life and getting all these goods and everything, and then dying and letting somebody else eat them, and they didn't even ever work, Well, we see that in life today. And there's a lot of cute little sayings that we say today we don't even know that came out of Ecclesiastes. Like in the 11th chapter, verse 1, it says, "Cast thy bread upon the waters, for thou shalt find it after many days." I'm sure you had heard that old saying, "Cast your bread upon the waters." I remember some years ago when First Baptist Church of Dallas was on NBC, the air. This is before television. And they used to announce their messages for the next day or for the next week. And every once in a while, they would make bloopers. And so I got a record at one time of bloopers of everything, and this was on there. And it was the announcer said, "Tune in next week and listen to the message, 'Cast your bread upon the waters.'" This is the National Broadcasting Corporation. All right, just above that in chapter 10, verse 20. I think you've heard of this saying, too, in different ways. "Curse not the king, no, not in thy thought, and curse not the rich in thy bedchamber, for a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which hath wings shall tell the matter." You ever heard the saying, "A little bird told me"? Out of Ecclesiastes. Or in chapter 10, verse 1, "Dead flies cause the ointment of the apothecary to send forth a stinking savor, so doth a little folly him that is in reputation for wisdom and honor." You've, of course, heard the saying, "Fly in the ointment." That's where that comes from. 10:1. And so, a lot of our sayings come out of here, and in also Proverbs. And as you scan through this book, you'll find lots of little things like this. You ever had a person tell you that he didn't sin? Chapter 7, verse 20. "For there is not a just man upon earth that doeth good, and sinneth not." All right. Here we have the preacher that's preaching earthly wisdom. And it begins the words, chapter 1, verse 1, "The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Jerusalem." That's who? Solomon. "Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanities." Anybody know what the word vanity means? Futility. Useless. Okay, and many other words that superlatives that you can think that says the same thing, but just futility. Nothing can come from it. Verse 3, "What profit hath a man of all his labors which he taketh under the sun? One generation passes away, another generation cometh, but the earth abideth forever." Now you think about it. All that everybody does, when it's all over, what profit does he have? Nothing. Just one generation comes, another generation follows. We think of like owning a piece of property. There's my house on my land. 100 years from now, 2 or 3 other people will have had it. It just keeps on going, I go back to my boyhood home every once in a while. I was raised there, born and raised there till we were married, actually. Nellie and I were married. And it was a nice little house on a road across a lake there in northwest Miami. Out really in a little town. Today, there's a 4-lane highway by the house, and where the house used to be, it's not. It's a strip mall, Cuban strip mall. Nothing stays the same. Everything changes. And if you don't believe that, keep looking in the mirror long enough, you'll see it happen. Everything changes. But eternal things never change. See, that's the nice thing. Whatever we can win here in this life for Christ's sake, in His name, you'll have it forever and ever. Now, he's just talking about wisdom under the sun. Verse 5, he says, the sun also rises, and the sun goeth down, and hasteth to his place where he rose. The wind goeth towards the south, and turneth again to the north. It whirls about continually, and the wind returneth again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers come, thither they return again. All things are full of labor, man cannot utter it. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. Man can never get satisfied what he sees or hears. See, the thing that hath been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. I don't know if you thought about it, but you can't really think up anything new. Somebody else already thought about it. Somewhere. There's no such thing as inventions, folks, not totally. There's only improvements on somebody else's idea. It's just a continuous thing. Nothing's new under the sun. Nothing. All right. Now, I want you to remember the writer here. He was the world's greatest, he had the world's greatest wisdom. God had given him wisdom. He's talking about worldly wisdom now. And he has invested what we would call maybe billions and billions of dollars to find this answer. And here, and the answer that he was seeking is this. What's the meaning of life? Every person you meet anywhere, particularly, I'm talking about the lost now, because he's not talking about lost or saved here, has got that thought in their head. What's the meaning of life? Here, this great man is searching for the meaning of life. And he's willing, like a scientist that would do experiments and investigation, trying to find out what it is that is the meaning of life. And when he gets through, what does he say? All is vanity. There's nothing. I can't answer that question in these terms because it's all vanity. None of it's any good. It's all futility. We have no idea the wealth that this man had that he used in his experiments. If you would take all the world's richest men together, the Gettys, the Gates, all the other people, and put them all together, they would just be a little piker to this one man's wealth. He was richer than any man, many times richer than any man that has ever lived. God gave it all to him. And he had all his wisdom. So he had plenty to experiment with, didn't he? Let's see some of his experiments. Let's go to chapter 2. I said in mine heart, go to now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure. And behold, this is also vanity. Okay, he says, I'm going to spend millions and millions of dollars, and we're going to have pleasure. This will be the real meaning of life, to have pleasure. And it turns out to be futility, just vanity. Folks, today the whole world's after pleasure. They think if they can get that pleasure, that their life will be fulfilled. In reality, they don't understand their lost condition, which calls for more. It's, their desires, the desires of the old heart, is like a rubber bag. You say, all right, if I put this much in it, it'll be filled. But when you put that much in it, it stretches. And there's that much more to put in it. And, you can never fill it. It's never completely, what's the word I'm trying to say? Full, yeah. But they're never completely, the person's life, he's never completely, it's never completely fulfilled, satisfied is the word I want.
I think even the word lost, when you think of it, when you're lost, it's always missing.
Yep.
So you think of a lost person, they're always seeking,
Well, you take John D. Rockefeller with all his millions and millions and millions. Somebody asked him, says, now on their birthday, says, you got all the money in the world, he says, if you could have anything you wanted, what would you have? He says, another 10 million. And that's all day long, from the day they get up in the morning till they go to bed at night time, and then they dream all night long, is how to go there and make more money. And what happens when they pass away? Somebody else takes it all over. I had skipping through here, there's a lot of, look over in chapter 6, verse 2. A man to whom God hath given riches, wealth, and honor, so that he wanteth nothing for his soul of all that he desireth, yet God giveth him not the power to eat thereof, but a stranger eateth it. This is vanity, and is the evil disease. Somebody else going to come get it anyway. And folks, what about people who say, listen, you can get ahead if you get the proper education, the proper degrees from the proper school, or you can, if you win the lottery, if you do this, if you do that, you'll get ahead, you'll get. Turn over just briefly, chapter 9, verse 11. I returned and saw under the sun, I want you to notice, under the sun, this is wisdom, that the race is not to the swift, nor the battle to the strong, neither yet bread to the wise, nor yet riches to men of understanding, nor yet favor to men of skill, but time and chance happeneth to them all. You know what he's saying? He's saying it's not your education, it's not your ability to make money, it's not your, your so-called edge that you get. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. That's what the bottom of that verse is saying. You go back and look at all the great leaders of our world. Let's go back to World War II, for instance. When I was a lad, I knew a lot about that because I was a teenager during that time. And take like Eisenhower, what a great general he was. And so we say, look, this great man, nobody else could have done what he did. There probably been a couple thousand people could have done what he did. But he just happened to be at the right place at the right time. And he made the right decision. He could have made the wrong decision. So, men go around, very proud at what they have because of what they did. And God says, you're at the right place at the right time, that's all. It's just chance. Now let's go back to chapter 2. The first thing that this preacher tried was pleasure. And he had billions of money to do it with. Now in verse 2, he says that's all vanity in verse 1. Now in verse 2, he's tried something else. I said of laughter, it is mad. And of mirth, what doeth it? Now he tried laughter. I guess he got to be a comic, or he found some comics. And he figured if he could laugh from morning to night, ha 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 ha, at the world and never get serious, everything would be fine and there would be a purpose and meaning to life. So he tried laughter, and then he said, it's mad. And of mirth, just lighthearted, what doeth it? And then he said, verse 3, after that, he says, I thought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven, all the days of their life. So he tried wine, while he was still trying to hold on to wisdom. Then verse 4, I made me great works. What did he do? I builded me houses. I planted me vineyards. All these work projects, you see. I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kinds of fruit. I made me pools of water, to water therewith the wood that bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and manservants, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle, above all that were in Jerusalem before me. Now here's work projects of building everything and making orchards and pools and animals and servants. Yeah, but he went through work projects here. Maybe that would, give him happiness and meaningful life, you see, he says to himself. And then he continues in verse 8. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and of providences. I got me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men. Now, it took me a long time to understand what the delights of the son of men was, but in the Hebrew it means I got me a bunch of concubines. Yeah, harem, that's right. Is that what your Bible says? Yeah, harem, all right. As musical, he says, I got descendants of the son of men as musical instruments, in that of all sorts. And then he says, I was great, and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem, and also my wisdom remained with me. And whatsoever mine eyes desired, I kept not from them. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. This man could do anything he wanted to. He could buy anything he wanted to, and he did. He could have any kind of pleasure, and he did. He had more than any other man that's ever lived. And you're going to find out he's going to end up saying it's all vanity. Nothing. Yeah.
You think right there in verse 10, he's at least saying that when he was in the growth of it, he really enjoyed accomplishing what he received from his labor. He enjoyed his work.
You enjoy it for the moment.
Right.
Sure, everybody enjoys it, but when it's all over, it's gone. So what's the purpose of life?
I really believe, I believe he knows the kingdom. Just from reading what I've so far.
Well, I'm sure he does, because he had the wisdom of God, but he's not using the wisdom that's over the sun at this point. He's only using the wisdom.
He's showing everybody, I think he's trying to show everybody the futility of life as it is.
Without God.
Right.
Without God.
And if he had not been blessed with all of that, he wouldn't have been qualified to pass this on to us and say, look, you can have it all, you're not going to have what you need. He's never be qualified.
Yeah, and he was even worried about after he went, he'd leave all this to the next person. What kind of wisdom they'd get from it. They probably got, and we know from history and from the Bible, they got nothing from it. But what I'm trying to say is, here's a man that's doing a scientific experiment and using himself for that experiment, and he's got all the time and all the money to do it with, and he ends up empty at the end of it. He's totally empty. Yeah, we'll continue there. In verse 11, he says, Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. After he got through, there was no profit at all. So, the first lesson that we need to learn is quit going after the things of this world, because even if you get them and you have a little pleasure for a little while, they all pass away, and your life is empty and meaningless if that's where you put all your trust. You see, ours is yet to come, and it will last forever. And it will be forever have a full meaning of life. And that will actually grow and grow and grow because we have God in it. Now, in verse 12, he begins another experiment. And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly. For what can a man do that cometh after the king? Even that which hath been already done. Then I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. All right, now this is a wisdom he's trying to teach here, not the wisdom over the sun. If you can learn these truths, he says, it will excel over folly like light will over darkness. And here he turns to take hold of wisdom and madness and folly, these three things. And then he said to himself, well, what can a man do after I'm gone? I've already tried all the experiments, you know. All right. Yeah, as you read this, you'll find a lot of different good scripture in it. In 16, for there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever, seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten. And how dieth the wise man? As the fool. You know, every once in a while, these people that die, great people, entertainers, what, and they die, and they're asked how they want to be remembered, or prior before their death. How do you want to be remembered? Or a president. How do you want to be remembered as the president? And they work all their life in order to have this memory of them. They put up these great libraries so you can remember. Or entertainers, they'll have their songs out there or whatever else they do, their films or whatever. And they will have some simple so-called profound, simple statement that they want people to remember them by. I saw the Kennedy son this week on television. Joe Kennedy that died, you know, Robert, but his son, Joe. And he was quoting the title of his book that he wrote about his father. And he was quoting something that his father said. And oh, how deep it was. And lasting. Well, that's the world for you. It's all going to be forgotten one day. It's all going to be forgotten. Verse 17, therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of the spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor, which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. You got a rich daddy?
Being in the sound bar, I'll say the Lord.
Being of a sound mind, he says, I spent the lot. Or, I'm spending my grandchildren's inheritance. I'm sure you're seeing that lots on the back. Yes.
If you're Christian and you teach well, when you're installed, you're missing out on what God has to.
Yeah, but he's not addressing the Christians here.
No, I'm getting that. In verse 1:18, he says, but in much wisdom is much grief, and you don't teach the knowledge, teach the knowledge.
That's the knowledge of this. That's the knowledge of this world. Yeah.
Perfect example of that is when you watch these stuff there's all these things to worry about the world. You know, there's so much to worry about.
When you get through looking at the 6:30 news, do you feel let down at the end of it? And you know, if we weren't Christians, and we knew what was going to happen to us and what was coming, we would be worried. And the lost world does. They're constantly, when you talk to them, you know, they're worried about this and worried about that and what's going to happen.
That's knowledge. That's knowledge. That's knowledge. Turn around too fast.
Well, anyway, here this man has himself a problem. Now, looking over into chapter 4, he considers something else here. Chapter 4, verse 1. So I returned. In other words, I'm going to try another experiment. And considered all the oppressions. Another good word for that would be injustices. The oppressions or injustices that are done under the sun in all the world. And behold, the tears of such as were oppressed. They had no comforter. And on the side of their oppressors there was power. But they had no comforter. What he's saying here is life's unfair. He says, even me as king and all my riches, somebody else is poor because of it. He recognized that. And here, if a lost man out there in the world, as we understand the scriptures here, he is saying they are being oppressed, and they are. Of course, we're being oppressed too, but we don't have to worry about the oppression in this world because we have something better to go to. But think of those that have no meaning to life, and they're being oppressed. Injustice is coming to them. Millions and millions in this world of injustice. They have the tears. These tears, who can comfort them, he's saying. And then on the side of their oppressors, those that did it, they get all the money and the power. You see it? Verse 1 there. But they don't have any comforter either when it all comes to an end. Life's unfair, he says. Therefore, or wherefore, I praise the dead. Listen to this now. He says, I praise the dead, verse 2, which are already dead, more than the living, which are yet alive. Why? Because they don't have to go through this. Yea, better is he than both they. He says, I'm going to show you something else that's even better than this. The alive or the dead. That is, which hath not yet been born. Those people which have not yet been born. They're better than those that are living or those that have been dead. This is better not to have ever been born. See? You wouldn't have seen the evil work that is done under the sun. Now, you see, again, he is speaking in wisdom under the sun and not whether they're lost or saved or anything. Talking about the world, ordinarily the whole world is of just people. And he goes on. He goes on and considers all these things. Again. Verse 4, again, I consider all travail and every right work, that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. Envy of his neighbor. Keeping up with the Joneses. You know what Chinese say? Chinese philosopher says, Americans, you never could understand them. So they buy something they don't need with money they don't have to impress somebody they don't like. That's the definition of keeping up with the Joneses. Yeah, right. And this goes on, and he just keeps giving it. We don't have the time, but there's all these things he tried. And then he says in verse 5, the fool foldeth his hands together and eateth his own bread. Better is a handful with quietness than both the hands full with travail and vexation of the spirit. You might as well just give up and try to be quiet and do your own thing, you know. All right, now we come over. He skips way over to the 12th chapter. Good book for you to read again. And I really want to start up verse 9 of the 11th chapter. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. Therefore remove sorrow, or that word is anger also, from thy heart, and put away evil from thy flesh, for childhood and youth are vanity. You see what he's saying? Childhood and youth is futility. Why? Because of the very nature of the young people. Their very nature. What is their nature? Well, verse 9 tells us, walking in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes, what you can see and what you can get, but know thou that for all these things God will bring thee into judgment. A young person is it's very difficult to tell them the things about God, because they only go according to what their normal faculties will perceive, what the heart, they're young in heart, and they know there's a lot out there in the world that they want to get. And now he's saying the best thing for you to do is to recognize God, in your youth. Now he begins in verse 1 of chapter 12, carries this idea on. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw not, or draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. All right, while you're young, you need to seek out God, your Creator. You remember your Creator before the evil days come. As you grow older, you're going to have some hard times, old buddy. That's what he's saying. And when you get older, the evil days will come, and the old age will come on. You see. And by the way, the older a person gets, if they haven't trusted the Lord, the harder it is. Hearts are very tender when you're young. When you get men up 60, 70, 80 years old, you don't have much of a chance to win them to the Lord. Their hearts are just hard as rocks then. The older they are, the harder they are. All right, now verse 2. When the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. He's beginning to describe this growing old now. And when he says, when all these things are darkened, that means that your sight is beginning to get impaired. I remember when I got my first clear pair of glasses at 40 years of age. I was studying so much I couldn't see I had to get reading glasses. And the doctor just laughed at me. Nellie and I were at First Baptist Church of Moorhaven. And he says everybody that uses their eyes around 40 starts to get glasses because they have to read. And, I thought, boy, I'm really aged. I'm wearing glasses. Sight being impaired. Verse 2. Now verse 3. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble and the strong man shall bow themselves. I want to take this little by little. In the day when the keepers of the house, that's your hands and your arms. Well, that's your next verse here. The first part is the keepers of the house. The keepers of the house are your hands and your arms that keep the house, the body. Then second, and they begin to tremble. Whoa, your hand. Nellie and I on our vacation, not vacation, I guess you call it a vacation, but we went up to see our granddaughters graduate. She was out to the car getting something in this hotel, and they had a free breakfast in the lobby. You've seen those places. And I'm sitting there in line, and they had 3 or 4 older gentlemen in front of us, and one was trying to make himself get a cup of coffee and another one a waffle, and they were going. And they were all each one in line, and I'm sitting there back, I'm getting impatient. And it was kind of amusing to me, and I said, well, I guess that's where I'll be one of these days with shaking hands. I just hope I don't drool. But hands and arms. Now, and the strong man shall bow themselves. The strong man here out of the Hebrew speaks of the feet and the knees. Now the body is bowing itself down, and you're barely walking along, shuffling, okay? And he's describing growing old here. And the grinders cease. What's the grinders, folks? The teeth, that's right. And the grinders seek because they are what? Few. Most have been pulled out. I only got about half mine. But I am grateful to God that I got two that meet. So I can eat. And those that look out the windows be darkened. What's that? That's the eyes. That's the eyelids, yeah. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low. What's the doors? Pardon? Doors? Actually, the doors are actually the lids, the lips. And the doors shall be shut. You don't talk no more in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low, when you can barely eat. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low, which means he can't hardly hear it. His voice and his ear both has he can't speak very loud, and his hearing has gone down. Oh, wait, we're not through yet. Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is not high, and fear shall be in the way. You know, the older people, they get very afraid of different things that we don't get afraid of. And now the end of it. And the almond tree shall flourish. What's the almond tree, folks? White hair. Almond trees are white all over. And it didn't say a bald almond tree. All right. And when the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden. A grasshopper means a little thing. No matter what you do, it's a big burden. See? And desire shall fail. Because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. See, he's coming up to death. See? From youth, where he could whip the whole world, to this point. Verse 6, or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken. That's when the soul departs from the body. Every once in a while, and Nellie will sing a song about the silver cord be broken. I think you've heard that. One day the silver cord will break. All right, that comes out of Ecclesiastes. And it's that tie between the soul and the body. When it's broken, it's gone. Or the golden bowl is gone. See? Yes.
Does that mean the scripture supports the idea of out of body experience?
Well, of course, your people who believe in astral projections and all that, they bring that out of Ecclesiastes, and they say that a person, when they go out into an astral projection, out-of-body experience, that there's a silver cord between their front head to the head of their body. And that's baloney. They've got that out of there, and they make that all out. No, this is an expression here. The scriptures nowhere else says that there is anything that connects where the two are tied. When you're dead, you're just dead. Now, if these people, you got a lot of people on TV that claim they had all these out-of-body experiences and blah 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 and so forth, but they don't ever talk about something that's tied between them and their body. No, this is just how the preacher here puts it, so that we can understand that there comes a time when death occurs, and you can't put that silver cord back You can't go over to heaven and then come back, as they're all saying. They never went there to begin with. Now you have the golden bowl be broken and the silver cord be loosed. Or the pitcher be broken at the fountain. Or the wheel broken at the cistern. That's your circulatory system. Yeah. We come from the silver cord, which has life itself, down to now we're having heart problems. See? The pitcher be broken at the fountain. That's the heart. Or the wheel broken at the cistern. That's the water wheel, you see. That's your heart. That's your circulatory system. Yes, I guess so.
I work for your logical
Okay, so now we come down to your circulatory system not working. Golden bowl is used in connection with the silver cord, and it just speaks of life. And when it's broken, that's it, you know. You can't put it back together. It's like Humpty Dumpty, you know. Once he falls off the wall, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put him together again. You can't go back and unscramble eggs. Once a person's dead, he's dead. The only one that has ever been raised from the dead into a resurrection body, that is, was Jesus Christ. But there's been many others that were raised by God. But that's an act of God. But normally speaking, a body cannot come back to life. That's the end of a life, he said. Now, verse 7. After we get to the end of life, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanities of vanities, saith the preacher. All is vanity. Or we can say it this way. Futility of futility, saith the preacher. All is futility. And moreover, because the preacher was wise, he still taught the people knowledge. Yea, he gave good heed and sought out and set in order many proverbs. These proverbs that he had written. The preacher sought to find out acceptable words, and that which was written was upright, even words of truth. The words of the wise are as goads, and as nails fastened by the masters of assembly, which are given from one shepherd. All right, you get wise words, and they don't move. You can nail them up, and they're going to be there. That when you give them, they're like a nail. They're nailed. They don't move. They don't change. Now we come down to verse 12. And further, by these, my son, be admonished of making many books. There is no end, and of much study is a weariness of the flesh. Okay, you can get all this knowledge and write books all your life. You can study, and all it is weariness of the flesh. There won't be no meaning in all these things. Now he comes down to the last thing that he sums it all up. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Or, when you say duty, this is the whole what living consists of. The word duty is not there in the original in the King James, but it means what living consists of. For God shall bring every work into judgment, and every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. All right, you want real wisdom? That's what he's telling you here. He's telling the youth as they're growing up, here before they get old and they pass away, to fear God and keep his commandments. And his commandments is in the Word of God as you study the Word. Now, there are 10 commandments for the Old Testament that was fulfilled in Christ, and all the other commandments under the law. And then he gave the commandments back to the church in the Sermon on the Mount. And he put teeth in them for us. We are to fulfill those commandments. We are to obey those commandments, I should say. And by keeping his commandments and fearing him. The trouble is that most Christians don't fear God.